Welcome to a new episode of the Cartridge Club, where we discuss our game of the month with members of the Cartridge Club community. For the month of May, the game the Cartridge Club played was Sewer Shark. It was selected via the Extra Life charity stream back in December. The winner of the raffle was Derek, aka Deej13's friend Rob, and he selected it. Joining me on the show, we have Pam from the YouTube channel Cannotbetamed and Bogus Meat Factory from the Literate Pixel Podcast. If you play along, you can always share your own experiences in the forums at cartridgeclub.org, in the community's Discord, or across social media by using the hashtag Cartridge Club. Before I start the show, on behalf of the entire Cartridge Club community, I'd like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon Club backers like Joel Boyce, Barry Dunmores, Christopher Rohr, Dean Lasagna, and Caleb Giros. To our backers and Patreon supporters, thank you. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter for the Cartridge Club, please look at how you can do so at patreon.com/Cartridge Club. Unfortunately, the winner of the CC Extra Life raffle, Rob, was not able to make the show's recording. He did send an audio clip saying why he selected Sewer Shark to be May's Game of the Month. With that being said, let's hear from Rob and start the show.
Hi, this is Rob, and I chose Sewer Shark because it stands out as one of the games in my collection that was one of the weirdest. I always went back to it time and time again, replayed it. It wasn't a very difficult game, but it was just fun. I like the movie motion picture aspect of it. And it was one of the first games that I saw that had that immersion and brought you into the game in that way. The game was also pretty funny with the different commentary and the acting and the clips. And it was one of those games where you just shut your brain off and you just basically just button mashed into trigger and shot the little sewer gators and just basically up, down, left, right, and there wasn't much to it, but it was just one of those games that I enjoyed playing.
Code blue, priority alpha.
Another crash and burn. First time, huh, rookie? Hey, listen, I hear they're putting you in with Ghost today. Now that's my main man. Greatest co-pilot to ever shoot the tubes. Give him your best stuff, and he'll keep you flying. Maybe all the way to Solar City, huh?
Pilot Valgo to launch Tray 7. Valgo to launch Tray 7.
Showtime. I'm Falco. You'll be hearing from me.
Welcome to the sewers, punk. The guy you're replacing, he had that same tough guy smirk on his face that you do, till he hit the wall. They're out there now blotting him up with handy wipes. But the ghost here, I always come back for more. Let's go, rookie!
So Sewer Shark surprised me in how good it was. I honestly didn't expect too much of it. You always see it at all the swaps, in all the shops. It's everywhere because it was a pack-in at some point, and you think, oh, it's probably not that good. But then I played it, and I actually was pleasantly surprised by how fun the gameplay was and how well it incorporated the gameplay and the FMV together. So I think my overall thoughts are that it's a surprisingly fun game and definitely a good FMV representation on the Sega CD.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to mimic that sentiment. Like, so I've had experience with Sewer Shark before, just kind of like, oh, let's give it a shot, right? No research, no reading the manual ahead of time, and I was just failing miserably at that game. And so this is the first time I sat down and I was like, I'm going to beat this. I had just recently finished a Sega CD FMV game, a different one, Wirehead, which is okay for an interactive movie, but this was surprisingly a lot more fun. Let's not, it's not an 8 out of 10. This is a swimming in sevens kind of game, but you get entertainment from it. It's a short jaunt. Yeah, it took about 45 minutes, like total. And I think that the elements that it kind of introduces, shooting enemies and navigating tubes and listening to directions and having to remember in a kind of Simon Says situation, worked really well for FMV in general. I thought it was a lot more fun. And one of the many instances of FMV games where I would actually say I recommend it. FMV is kind of a weird, muddy, territory for a lot of people. It doesn't work in some instances, and it works very well in others. And I think in the case of Sewer Shark, it works very well.
You say it's 7, but according to GamePro from back in the day, they had it as a 5 out of 5. A perfect introduction to CD power gaming, according to GamePro magazine out of the United States. Thanks to Dean for posting all these reviews about it from back in the day. Like I got like 86% from Joypad out of France. So it reviewed well back in the day.
Yeah. What's weird is you bring up the reviews, and I was looking through them, and what's really fascinating is at the time that it's released, it's anywhere between a 7 out of 10 and like a 9 out of 10 typically, right? Like that's kind of where the reviews floated. And the modern day reviews, the stuff that's been out for roughly a decade or two, are like, it's a 0 out of 10. This is garbage. This is the worst thing ever. And what's fascinating is that you look at the timeline of how a lot of influencers and YouTubers and things like this, you can see the uptick where a YouTuber is like, this is trash. And then all of a sudden you just see lines of just reviews, bad reviews. This is terrible. This is terrible. This is terrible. In reality, the game is not terrible, not even remotely. There are so many other really, really bad games of that era that aren't even FMV, that are really not fun to play. This has a level of enjoyment. You have these FMV sequences that are cheesy, over-exaggerated, over the top, but are enjoyable. Like you have these, oh, what did they just say? Like what is happening? What is happening? And you're getting enjoyment from that. That the gameplay is simple, but there's so many simple elements to it that it adds up to an engaging experience. I mean, I streamed this game, and it was very hard for me to just stop and talk to chat, because I was very much engaged in the game. I was like, okay, 3, 9, 12, okay, we got to remember this. Okay, shooting the things, keeping the score up, energy management. All of those things are all elements of this game that you have to keep track of simultaneously, and it's very fast paced. So you're locked on, and it was great. I loved it.
And Pam, I watched your review for this, and something you said in your review happened to me when I was playing it too. And it was definitely one of those, I put down my controller to have a sip of my water that I'm playing, and it's an FMV, the cutscene's playing, and he's like, hey, I put a machine gun on this ship. Go ahead and fire it for me. And I'm just like, I think this could be this, it plays in the video. And it's like, what? Why did you press it? I need a new pilot. And I'm like, and then credits. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So.
And it gives you maybe 2 seconds. And then just oh, guess you're not the right one. Game over. And I had such a hard time getting to that place in the game because I wasn't getting a high enough score. So my game was ending, or I was just forgetting the directions. And so I finally got there. And then to just have it, the carpet ripped out from under me, it's just oh.
No, it's bad. There was a moment where I'm like, all right, good. He's talking. It's great. They're waiting for an input. Oh my gosh, last second, literally a fraction of a second left. I'm like, oh my gosh.
The funny thing is, the first part of the game, I just must have been in cruise control and not even thinking about it, just shooting whatever. And then right when you get to the rat breath kind of section is when I noticed that's when I started dying a lot, or losing and getting the bad credits, the bad ending, when saying I wasn't hitting the score high enough. And I was like, really? Because up until this point, I felt like I didn't have to. And then I played it again the next day, and sure enough, I'm not even being the first section because my score is too low. So I'm like, what happened? Why was my I guess I was more in a zone discovering it.
It doesn't make that clear at all that you need to hit a certain score by a certain point, and you don't really even know why the game has ended. It just, you assume it's score because that's all there is.
So just to rewind here for just a little bit for my overall thoughts on the game, it is a great game and it's cheap. So great maybe is an exaggeration, but it's a good time. It's a good time, and I paid $5 for my copy. So it's It's definitely easily accessible. I bought mine at the Midwest Gaming Classic. Well, that's because I think originally I was looking for maybe the box version, but I just ultimately decided I'll just go for the pack-in version. It can't be that big of a deal. It's not like I'm collecting Sega CD or anything like that so much. So I just opted for that version, and I got the version that came with the manual. As for FMV, I wouldn't say it's my first one. It's maybe the first one I really dedicated any time to. I own 2 versions of Corpse Killer for the Sega CD, which
nice.
That is not a nice game. That game
It's
sucks.
best on Saturn. It's best on Saturn and
Okay.
3DO. Like that's what it's best on. But no, Corpse Killer was one of the very first ones where the game where I was like, I need to capture footage of this game. This is the weirdest FMV game I've ever played. And so that was like, if you ever I have a YouTube channel where I just post random things. It's nothing official. It's just silly. But there's just so many Corpse Killer videos from 12 years ago. And I'm like, yep, that's my Corpse Killer videos. I love that game. It's bad. It's really bad.
It's the funny thing is once it was at a point in my life, in my collecting career, where I was trying to buy anything and everything possible, right? So Corpse Killer was the one Sega CD game where I saw all the time. So I was like, I gotta buy that. And then I saw a Sega CD 32X. I'm like, gotta buy it again. And eventually when I sat down and played, I'm like, this is terrible. This game is, and I don't know. I probably should try to sell it now. I think it might have actually went up in price now, just to get rid of it.
No, hold on to that bad boy, because it's going to reach a cult status at a certain point in time. Trust me.
Well,
Trust me.
It got a re-release thanks to limited run, but this game, on the other hand, did not. And once again, to quote Pam's video, I think I agree with her that this one, I think, was actually deserving of a re-release for modern consoles. And I say that because sometimes with the D-pad, it's slow. It's slow to go with the shooting, right? And slower to you see the target, but you just can't get the D-pad that the crosshairs on it fast enough. Where I think maybe using the Menacer or even the Justifier probably would have been a little bit more helpful for this game. I know some Sega CD 32X games you can. I think maybe Corpse Killer you might be able to use the light gun. I might be wrong on that one.
You can with Snatcher.
Snatcher for sure you can use the Justifier for. But yeah, as opposed to the D-pad, I imagine analog stick just flying around shooting would be 100% beneficial. I've died a couple times because I missed the turn because I forgot to press B to make the turn.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. There has been many. I fat fingered so many turns and into destruction, and I was like, "Oh come on!" I was right there. No.
And there's no way to recover after you make past the first chapter of the game. After that, you're just ride and die into the right into the pipes. So
that's right. Crash and burn. Crash and burn.
Yeah, of anything. So I'll give that, so interesting selection because we have yet to play a Sega CD game until now for the Cartridge Club. The only game I've ever really sat down and played and beat was Spider-Man versus Kingpin on the Sega
Good
CD.
game. That's a fun game.
That's a fun game. So I imagine there's more treats there besides well-renowned Snatcher and whatnot. But do you guys have any other Sega CD recommendations you would say or?
So many. Go ahead, Pam. I'm sorry. I'm just
I would recommend Dune. Dune is a really fun one that combines sort of a point and click adventure with a strategy game. That's a really fun one. Really well done. I really liked, what else do I like? I don't necessarily recommend the other FMV games as much as I've, played them. But yeah, I really liked Snatcher, KO Flying Squadron. That's another one of the super expensive ones, but great cartoony look to that one and a pretty fun shoot 'em up. Pop Full Mail is also a really cool action adventure game. So there's definitely, I feel like the Sega CD doesn't get quite the respect it deserves because it's definitely got some decent games on it.
Holy smokes, where do I even begin? One, you nailed it, Pam. All fantastic games that I cannot stress enough. So one of the things the Genesis and Sega consoles at the time did such a phenomenal job was bringing PC games to the console, right? On the Genesis, you had Starflight, you had King's Bounty, you had Buck Rogers, you had, I guess Rings of Power was going to be a computer game, but it didn't happen. So it was just console only. But on the Sega CD was no different. I mean, you had Dune, which was a fantastic interpretation. It was a fantastic port of the PC. They brought those games in a way that was accessible to players. That is a great game. I'd also even recommend, although the control scheme's kind of wacky, the Sega CD version of Wing Commander. It's the only version that's voiced. And it's enjoyable. That was my first introduction to that game. And then we absolutely got it on DOS after that because I thought it was so good. But recommendations from me would be, a lot of people don't like the Genesis version, the Genesis one of this game, but Eternal Champions, this would be the sequel on the Sega CD, is a legitimately enjoyable fighting game. It's broken, but broken in the favor of the player, not the computer. And it has some of the most graphic and grisly fatalities that I've ever seen from a fighting game that can only be rivaled by the modern Mortal Kombat games.
Wow.
It is, and it also has the most hardcore, like, rock and guitar metal music of any video game ever made. It's a fantastic game. It's so good. It's so wild. Other great Sega CD games that I would recommend. There's some weird ones that I don't necessarily think are good, but I think are very interesting, like the Sega CD Jurassic Park game, which is also FMV. It's a mixture of a weird Myst style adventure game with these kind of shooting gallery moments, but play very much kind of like what we see with Sewer Shark. The cursor's just a little slow. It doesn't really work so great. But it was a really interesting game. It's not necessarily good, but if you want better FMV games, I would recommend Double Switch over something like Night Trap. Double Switch is a really interesting game starring Corey Haim and
Debbie Harry.
Yes. That is a interesting, and if you want to go for the more interactive movie style, that's probably the better one out of all the ones there. I have a lot. Like, if you want to go Japanese RPGs, of course you have the Shining Force CD collection, which is their ports of the Game Gear. Sorry, Game Gear Shining Force games, very good. And there's also Vise, which is another great Japanese RPG. It's very enjoyable. Of course, you have Lunar, the classic Lunar. Yeah, the Sega CD has tons of good stuff. It's not given the love and respect that I think it deserves, even though it doesn't have a laundry list of great games like something like the Super Nintendo or the Genesis or the PlayStation. The stuff that it does have there, the good stuff that it has there, is distinctly unique to the system. It's something that an experience you can't get out of anything else. So I love it. It's so great. I have a question for you guys.
Shoot.
So as you said, you don't have much FMV experience. Pam, I got to ask you, how much FMV experience do you have?
Well, I saw this question and I looked up. I made a ranking video of all the FMV games I played, and there's 38 games on it, and I've played at least one more since then.
Oh, man.
A fair bit of experience.
I should have absolutely consulted that video before making my game, because it's about FMV games.
Oh, no.
So you're going to rock this one. It's going to be fantastic. I'm so excited. My experience with FMV games in general is extensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my early loves of video games. Being introduced to a game, the classic Myst, as a young, preteen me, made me like terrified. It was a chilling and strange game that was alien and haunting and weird, but the FMV sequences really interested me and intrigued me. And then I got into like games like using them for adventure games in general, like The Seventh Guest and Gabriel Knight 2, which, by the way, I may consider to be the best FMV game I've ever played, at least in the old stuff. Not necessarily new stuff. They're using FMV now in really great and fascinating ways, like Her Story, and something that's like, this is not for broadcast or something like this.
Not for broadcast, yeah. Not
for broadcast is, wow, it's great. So FMV games, I've played so many, and some of the most obscure games that use FMV on the planet. I don't know of anybody who has ever played some of these weird games that I've played. Like, for instance, Prince, the artist. He has an FMV game. Yeah, there's so many people. Devo, Aerosmith, everybody.
Is it like one of those make my video?
No,
No?
it is
No.
a Myst style adventure game
Wow, okay.
starring Prince. It's not really starring Prince, but it uses his music, and it's included in like this box set DVD thing.
Huh.
Whoo! It's a treat. Sorry.
No, that's no problem. It's like you have a history, man. Like I needed some experts for this show here. Just because like I obtained a Sega CD via a friend just give me his Sega CD collection because he's like, hey, one of these two work. I don't know which one does, and I got the one apparently that did work. And eventually I found out you can burn games pretty easily. So yeah. So that's a nice bonus to it. But yeah, I'm still fairly wet behind the ears when it comes to the Sega CD. Anyone play this on the 3DO by chance? I just don't know if the quality is any better.
The quality is better, but I have not played on the 3DO. I've seen footage of it. I've played a lot of FMV games that are on the 3DO, and yeah, typically, hands down, the video compression is a lot less. It's not super compressed like the Sega CD.
Good to know. I guess we should cover probably the plot here for a little bit because it actually does have a little bit of a story, which is told mostly through the FMV videos here. So essentially, you are a rookie pilot, which keeps getting, or a sewer jockey, if you will, which is like a pilot that goes through the sewers for, I guess, for Solar City, right?
Yeah, to keep them clean. The story isn't all that well thought out, to be honest. So.
And maybe I missed this here, but I think, Pam, did you say like it's also for food by chance, or?
Well, they measure it in pounds. They say, give me this many pounds of sewer meat or whatever. So I was like, well, is it food? It kind of sounds like it's food.
Yeah, I'm like, well, maybe it's kind of like we call it the what is that movie with Stallone? Him and Wesley Snipes. Demolition Man. Is it like a Demolition Man kind of thing?
Another great FMV game on the 3DO. Very good.
That one's a good one?
No, it's really bad, but it's really interesting.
So basically, yeah, you're flying along with Ghost, right? He's your co-pilot, right? He's the one who keeps like insulting you and shoot the tubes. And you're followed around by Catfish, which is like a little bit of a robot like scout. He tells you like what to look out for, and you're working alongside Falco, who's also a female jockey. I don't know. I can't remember. Basically, she's like hovering around like what, Sewer 19 or something like that, or
Section 19. Yeah,
Section 19. Yeah, and we keep warning not to go to that general area, and eventually you keep getting closer and closer to the beach of Solar City. That's the ultimate goal is to get there, because I heard the quote 1,000 times that like I could see it now. The white sand and the blue sky. I've heard that line so many times from Falco before she crashes. So, and you're constantly being then, I guess he's your boss, right? Stenchler, Commissioner Stenchler.
Yeah.
Who's, like he's the one that constantly kept ruining my runs for having a small total. But he's also then trying to kill you. Yeah.
You know how it goes. It's your boss. So isn't that the case for everybody in the workplace? Your boss is trying to kill you slowly.
Yeah. Slowly. Even though you're helping him out by cleaning the sewers, he wants you stopped for reasons. So, but that's generally the plot, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, I guess you need a reason to go in the sewers and then a villain. But yeah, cool story. So.
Cool story, bro. So here's the thing. So we know Sewer Shark on the Sega CD from the early 1990s, but in reality, this game had been sitting pretty much on the shelf in a warehouse since 1987. This was filmed in 1987 for a upcoming video game console that was called the Control Vision. It was a VHS-based video game system that was designed by, that was pitched by Tom Zito, the guy who created Night Trap, Sewer Shark, Supreme Warrior, these sorts of games, all these FMV games and stuff like this. He really believed in the in full motion video as being the future of games, and a lot of people bought that idea. including Nolan Bushnell, the creator of Atari. Him and his company Axiom decided to work on actually designing the system itself. It's a VHS, but also with pretty much a retrofitted ColecoVision attached to it. The ColecoVision did all the interactive elements. So all the buttons, all the shootable things, it controlled all the actual like game graphics, not the full motion video. That's what the VHS did. And essentially the VHS had a bunch of crazy stuff in it. This code that, you know, the system could trigger different audio and different video. And so it was this wild console. I don't even really understand entirely how this works. It seems to me like magic. How can you get that to work? And it seemed to do so almost seamlessly. So like, I have no clue, but Hasbro loved this idea. They put it into production. They produced the system. They advertised it. They put it on sale. And like 2 months before it was supposed to hit the shelves, shut it down. And that was it. And you didn't see it again until the Sega CD came out. And Tom Zito was like, let's do it. Let's put it on there. And so they put all the games they filmed for it. So Night Trap was filmed in 1986. Sewer Shark was just a couple months later in 1987. And then they worked on a whole bunch of other ones after the fact. It was wild.
Can I ask a quick question? Did any of you guys put the CD in a CD player?
I did not.
I kept getting told by Dean. I think told me to keep putting it in there and go to track 2. I think he kept telling me to do.
Oh no, that's probably the game the game data. Probably is my guess. So when you put that, typically what happens with most CD-based games is they'll give you a warning track, which is track 1. They're like, hey, do not put this in your CD player. It contains, you know, highly fragile digital data, and it'll destroy your speakers. And destroy your speakers, it will. It is a cacophony of sound that is it's so it's the worst thing ever. I have absolutely listened to it.
You know, I'm tempted to do it just to do it, just to see, and if it's watch it's like it's some tune, and I'll use that as the post credits music here for the stream. Only reason I said is I was just wondering if it's like some kind of track, and I know I heard you mention something about banger tracks here, and this game has like one. One track. Actually, it has 2 tracks. I would say it's got the game music, right, and then it's got like the cheesy 80s generic action film. Wow. Yeah, like I could think of like Cobra or something like that from like the 80s, where it's just like Death Wish 3, where it's just like a constant just wow, like that whenever the villain's talking, or they're walking around in the FMV.
It's got the beach music too, though. It's got the dun 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 dun. Yeah, like just the steel drums and
yeah, which is also nice where you leave the office and go straight to a beach, right?
That set is the best set in the world.
Yeah, it was just nice that they set up the shop right there.
It's nice and easy. It's convenient.
Anyone else really like the tune for this? For the one track that's kind of copying the Bubble Bobble philosophy of one song is all you need. So
I think it's a great track. Like, I didn't get tired of it. I think it changes a little bit as you go. Like as you go up in ranks, they sort of slightly remix it or add a different beat onto it. But I think generally the main track while you're in the sewers is really good. Like, it's a good electronic sound. I didn't get tired of it.
I'm a Sega Genesis sound like apologist. I think that almost universally the Sega Genesis can pump out really great music, and fantastic music. This was one of those instances I felt like I was farting on the drum. It was very grating to my ears. I was like, no, I can't listen to this. The in-level music is really bad. I couldn't like it. I feel bad.
Fair enough. But we were just speaking of the sewers here, so a little bit of the level discussion. Were there any highlights or lowlights of the sewers for you guys? It's pretty much the same thing over and over. I know we just kind of mentioned. I don't know. Did we quite even really mention like how the game plays yet with the having to listen to Catfish or Falco to tell you which direction to go? No.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that yet.
Yeah.
All right, let's do that real quick here. So yeah, one thing I didn't catch on right away was that you actually have to listen. You keep seeing like the paths coming up, and originally when I was playing was like, okay, it's flashing green arrow here or left arrow here or up arrow, so I'm doing it and holding on B, and they're like, which direction? You're going the wrong direction, and I'm like, what the hell? But here I was not paying attention to Catfish telling me, 12, 9, or 3, and I'm like, oh. Well, that makes sense. I guess I just gotta pay attention, and then it still keeps flashing. Like I guess just to throw you off, right?
Yeah.
And believe me, it works because there's all those times where I'm like, okay, it was 3, 6, 9, and I'm like, okay, and I hit 6 because I'm like, oh, did I hit 3 already? I thought I hit 3 already. Hit credit music.
That credit music, you'll hear it a lot.
It's a lot to keep track of because you have to remember the directions, and then you've got the energy things that you can go at to like refill your energy so you can keep shooting, and then all the time you have to shoot at every little rat or gator or whatever you have in the sewers, because if you don't shoot enough of them, your score won't be high enough to move on to the next round. So it is a lot to keep track of.
And then there's also the gameplay element where you have to also watch this meter that fills up, and when it hits the red, you have to push a button to have Catfish like explode this gas before you get to it. And so there's so many elements of things you have to keep track of, which is why the game is more enjoyable than it should be, right? Because if it was just shooting the creatures, it would be so boring. If it was just shooting the creatures and following directions, it'd be like, it's all right. And then there's more to it. And then they change things up where you don't have to listen to Catfish anymore. You have to follow the directions of this creature, this freaky looking thing or whatever they called it. And it's this little bat that'll fly around on your screen. But when it's time to actually take a tube, it'll move in that direction. And so then you're like, oh, I have to now kind of split second, take that path. So they changed that stuff up a bunch. It was really interesting. To talk about highlights, I think that near the end of that game, the ending portions is chaotic, wild, and incredibly tense because you have these self-destructing robots that are just flinging themselves at you, and they'll like flit around and change, and it was just absolute chaos to be like, it's one hit kill. If you miss it, that's it. It's game over. And so you had to really pay attention and really focus on their move patterns and recognizing the sequences when they're going to be popping up and how they're going to move so that you can hit them easier. It was intense, and that was really enjoyable. That's really great.
Can either of you give me any tips for the recharge stations? Like, is there any clues? Like, I still have not seen any clues. The only reason why I know which way to go is because I was watching like a playthrough, and I was like, okay, first one's right, second one's left. Next one's right. That one, the next one's down. I never caught any clues and went over my head real quick for the recharging period. Where it's like, you're about to recharge.
Got any tips, Pam?
I don't have any tips.
Tips are easy. So you're actually looking when he says recharge station coming up. So you're looking for, in particular, a green light in the tubes, right? So there's a red light and a green light. And that's going to be the signifier of where you need to go, either right or left, typically. And so you're just looking for that light, and whichever side that's on, that's the way you got to go. Gotcha. And it's on the screen itself. It's not one of the weird arrow directional things. So,
yeah, that's another thing. You have to keep looking everywhere, basically, on your screen here at all times. I still was wondering. I'm glad you explained what the C buttons use was, because I didn't know what I think it said it shoots a flare or something like that. I think is what the manual says, but I'm like, I don't know when I'll need this, but we'll get there eventually. I don't know. Did you guys have any? This game is quotable. Did you guys have any favorite quotes from this game, or?
I like when Stenchler, who sounds very much like Danny DeVito, he talks about sending the moles after you, and he was like, these guys were my second rate guys, but these guys, I call them the chainsaw line, and I love that.
Yeah, that's a great line. I love it very much. That's a very good one. I think my most favorite is, "You're gonna owe me big dog meat, and what's my payback? 1,000,000 pounds of tube steak. That's all you got to deliver, hotshot." And I'm like, I don't think you guys know what the slang for tube meat is. That is not. Oh boy.
1987 tube steak meant something else.
I guess so. And then I was watching the video. I was watching all the video sequences, and I didn't know that there's actually 3 levels of performance that you can have. So they have a you did terrible / you're fired, you did okay, you're not too bad, and then you did fantastic. And one of the ones for the bad one is so you gotten fired, and it's dog meat, you like gutter balls, your call sign ought to be jerk face or maybe super wimp, I'm transferring you to the spineless moron department, dismissed.
Is that the post credits, or is that like the credits, or
that was like halfway through the game? If you didn't get the score right, he's just like, nope, you're done, sorry, like goodbye, that's it. Ghost was like, you're out of here, I'm sorry.
Because I know there's the one scene where it kept appearing for me, and I think maybe my ship got hit by the scorpions that triggered it, but like Ghost is like got all these like loose wires by him basically, and he's like, oh no, I keep doing this, I gotta work on this kind of thing, and all of a sudden the next thing is Stenchler appears and tells me my score is low, and I die, and it's post credits.
I had the same scene, but I didn't get the death sequence. I think that's just something that happens. Like it's just a normal, like you're at the end, and he's just like, okay, this is, it's getting bad, we gotta hold it together.
I wish I had him 100% memorized, but I really liked Falco. For her lines were over the top, I would say, always kind of
unhinged.
Yeah,
unhinged.
Hers were always very over the top, basically. But she wasn't never yelling at you. She seemed like she was having a lot of fun, basically, as opposed to like Ghost is always like, dog meat, rat breath. He's like always like, all right, you did good, but you're gonna mess this one up. Don't mess this up. Hers are always very much like, I know I mentioned earlier the white sand and I'm trying to remember what she says before too. Like when she first discovers the area and she tells you go 6, whatever, like gives you the directions, like 6, 12, 6 or something like that.
The game is so memorable for the scenes. I mean, Stenchler himself, anytime he is on screen with his assistant, it is just, you're so like, I can't possibly fathom what is going on here. His office is just a little bit of like, like balsa wood cutout, on the beach, and like he rips his clothes off and he's like, let's go. It's so ridiculous. He's surfing. There's a scene, I didn't see this scene, but he's on a jet ski with her, his assistant, and like they're jet skiing. There's a part where he's surfing and he's like, oh, tubular, gnarly, man, and it's like, what is this? He's eating like a giant turkey leg, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and then at the end when they sort of take over and people are rolling him down the beach in a tire.
Yes, and the box, he's like just showing a box to people, and they're like, ah, and he's just waving a box at people, and they're all freaking out, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, he's got the box. He's got those big like sun laser things up that he roasts his marshmallows on. I don't really get where everyone turns against him and decides they're not gonna take him anymore, but it happens.
Maybe it's because like he allowed the poor sewer people to the rich people beach or something like that.
Yeah, it's like you're gonna come up and free them because they're like his servants or something, right? Because he talked about them all, like he was gonna enslave Falco. Thank you. And and all that weird stuff. I don't know. It was weird. It was so weird.
It was the 80s, right?
Exactly. Hey, it's the 80s.
That was normal back in the day.
The special effects were done by ILM, though, Industrial Light
Mhm.
and Magic, and by an Academy Award-winning special effects artist. And I would say that, like, when it cuts to those weird sequences where you see the ship running through the tubes, like, you know, you get a third-person perspective of it. It looks great, and I
It
think that,
does.
like, Catfish looks cool too. Like, even though he is a little annoying, like, oh god, he was the line. Gee, miss, that's some real pretty underwear you have on there. I'm like, oh my god.
I
Yeah.
think he said something about going to like a rodeo or something too at one point. I
Oh my
can't remember.
gosh. Yeah. So look, we talked about like FMV games, right? We talked a little bit about our experience with FMV games and things like this. I wanted to ask and posit this question to you guys about like, when is a good time to have FMV in games? Like, is there instances where FMV actually helps and aids the game, or are there any FMV games that or genre that you think that FMV games work for? Because I feel like FMV gets a really bad rap. A lot of times people attribute it to those instances where they're just trying to copy a game like Myst, you know, and they do so really poorly. You look at games like Shivers from Sierra, or something like Lighthouse by Sierra, that utilize FMV in really just cheesy and hackneyed ways that don't fit right. Or people trying to put them into genres like a fighting game like Supreme Warrior by the same company as the guys who made Sewer Shark, which is a weird first-person fighting game. It is not fun. But is there a situation where there's a genre that works well with FMVs, and any particular gameplay mechanics that you think that FMVs work really well for? Because I'm very curious.
Well, I think they go well with adventure games. My specific favorites for FMV in general are the Tex Murphy games. And I like those because they incorporate the FMV in a way where, like, a lot of the adventure games at this time, like Phantasmagoria or things, it was sort of just a static screen, whereas Tex Murphy, you could actually walk around in 3D, but then when you saw a person, that was a real person, and so you'd have a conversation, and those would be, you know, real people against digital backgrounds. And I thought that worked really well. I think anytime you have like specific scenes in FMV, it works. There's a lot of ways. Like, I really liked, you were talking about not for broadcast, and again, that was, you know, specific scenes. I actually compare that quite a bit to Sewer Shark, because then you're also just doing other things. Like, it's not just, you know, do a thing, watch a scene, do a thing, watch a scene. It's like do 10 things while
but the
watching
little
a scene.
things. Yeah.
So I think those work really well, as opposed to, I find most digital pictures games do not actually do the FMV well.
Yeah.
The FMV and the gameplay are at odds against each other. Like Night Trap, for example, you can go find the augers and trap them, or you can watch the scenes. Like, there a lot of time they're happening at the same time. So if you want to see the story, well, you can't, because you'll miss the augers, and then their game will be over.
And you have to guess where the augers are, and so you're always kind of flipping around. That is one of those things where Night Trap is probably one of the most overrated FMV games, even though people still don't think it's very good. But I'm like, that is one of the higher profile ones that is just not good and not indicative of that stuff. A question for you. Have you ever played any light gun games, shooting gallery games that are FMV, like Crime Patrol or Who Shot Johnny Rock? Have you ever played any of those before?
I played a little of Who Shot Johnny Rock. Would Ground Zero Texas?
That counts.
Yeah.
Those are a great implementation of FMV, I feel like, right? Because like it's shooting gallery, you know, it's a game like Lethal Enforcers or like Virtual Cop, but it's using full motion video. There's a bunch of weird ones like Space Pirates, which is very ridiculous. Those are good, but you nail it on adventure games and using them productively, right? And even now we're starting to see FMV games morph and change, still sticking to adventure, but now changing the way that we engage in an adventure game. We talk about Not for Broadcast. We talk about Her Story, which is a brilliant game.
Mhm.
And a brilliant use of FMV that is engaging. For those that don't know, her story is this weird FMV game where you're at a computer console and looking at police interrogation footage, and you have to just type in keywords that are used in little tiny snippets to understand about this woman who is allegedly murdered her husband. And so you're just looking at interviews of her and trying to find things, and just how you uncover new and interesting pieces of information just unrolls really great. And FMV works to that favor because the point is the actors and the nuance of an actor. And you can't get that with CG. Like it drives me wild when they're like, we now have CG Kevin Spacey. I'm like, why not just record Kevin Spacey?
Yeah.
Why did you spend millions of dollars to recreate him only in static cut scenes when you could have just done an FMV Kevin Spacey? Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, I feel like they've come a long way, because another sort of genre that was often used for FMV was basically just the choose your own adventure, like Wirehead, or my mind is blanking, but there's a bunch of them.
There's a bunch of them. There is. Yeah.
But I like when they add something a little more, like her story. One that I really liked was The Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker, which is similar to her story in that
that was almost going to be a question in my game, and I chose not to. I'm glad I didn't.
Where you're listening to these patients talk, and you're asking them questions to get the information. So while I still do enjoy some where it's just, okay, do you want to go left or do you want to go right? It really makes a big difference when there's an extra layer on top of it, rather than just sort of watching a movie and occasionally pushing a button.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that FMV games, people should look at them in a new or different light. It's a weird minefield of finding good FMV games, especially in, the retro category. Modern day, there's a lot more than there was back in the day. And a lot of it is very high quality. It's very enjoyable and good. So, like, for people who are interested in a game, like Sewer Shark is a good entry point into an FMV game. The FMV sequences are kind of inconsequential. They're silly, humorous, and just weird. But the gameplay is withstandable. It's not bad. Right. So I would recommend Sewer Shark for people who are like, I want to play a weird FMV game. Like, okay, that one is a good one. But like, people always look at this medium in particular and always stick their nose up on it saying, oh, it's garbage. I'm like, no, it's just weird.
Yeah.
It's just weird. And that makes it so special and interesting because it does things that only FMV games can do. That's special. That's special. I'm almost 39 years old. I'm an old man now. I played a lot of games in my life, and I'm like, I don't want the same old game. I want something that's interesting. Flawed, sure. It's not the most perfect game, but it's doing something interesting. And FMV games very much do very interesting things. Sorry.
Do you consider, for FMV, do you consider it has to be like actual actors doing it, or do you talk about like even consider like a cutscene that's like a character, but it's like, it's a video game character that cuts away to tell a story or something like that?
Yeah, like a Dragon's Lair, those are technically considered FMV games, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with those. They typically do some really interesting stuff. There's a Thayer's Quest, which is a really weird FMV game. It's a cartoon. It's cartoon. It doesn't have live actors in it, but it plays kind of like Dragon's Lair, but it's an arcade game originally, and it came with a full-size keyboard. It was wild. You had an inventory system. It was kind of open world where you picked the areas you wanted to go to. You had an inventory, and it was this weird fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons style thing. But it was also very much like a puzzle adventure game, but it was also in the arcade. So it was really just weird. And it had, the keyboard is these weird bubble keys. Like if you were to play, the feeling of when you play Trouble. Everyone ever played the game Trouble? Yeah. When you push down on the little bubble to make the dice roll, the keys felt like that. And it was such, I remembered this as a kid, because I was a child of the arcades. And I remembered this game and this arcade, this keyboard, and I remembered those keys and how they felt and what they looked like. And I was like, this was the weirdest game I've ever seen. I didn't know how to play. I was like 4, but it was so. Oh, sorry. Hi.
I only asked that because the one game that I remember from my past, and it kind of reminds me of it, but it was for the PC only, and it was Titanic. But it was like all cutscenes where it's like a mystery on the Titanic where there's like a paintings.
I own that game. It's a great game. It has the digitized actors.
Yeah,
and it has the really weird way that they talk and emote. And there's a lot of weird static animations to them. That Titanic game is really interesting. It's kind of part edutainment, and it was the Windows 95 era. That is. A very good. That's actually a really interesting and engaging game. It's a strange game, but it's good. That company made a different one too. That's also a Western one in a Western setting. It was really weird.
I think it's like there's a murder, and I think it's got a couple different endings if I remember correctly. Like I think you can prevent World War II from happening, and Hitler becomes a famous painter or something like that. So,
yes, to all of the above.
Yeah, it was creepy as hell because there's like something you have to go like into the basement or wherever, like the
engine room,
and everything like that. After a murder happens on the boat, and it was. That's the way I think. But and then things just load and pop up on the screen because I remember like that was a game I played with my sister on our first computer, and it was very much like, where do we go here? Okay, we need a clue. And I think it took us that was before like GameFAQs or before we even had the internet and GameFAQs was around. So it was very much a comb every little room, look for every little clue before you can advance kind of thing.
Yeah, and you could go anywhere. So it was a really big area, and so it was very easy to get lost.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, all right, let's see what's on the list. We got music tracks, or we can do your bogus game right here.
I don't know. Are you guys ready for that game? I don't know if you're ready. Are you ready for that game?
I'm ready.
Oh my goodness, buckle up. Turn and burn. This is a game that I think, look, okay, so
shoot the tubes.
Shoot the tubes, dog meat. So being a guest on this is my second time being on the Cartridge Club podcast, and I feel that it is very important to be a guest, to bring a special dish. Like you're going to a party, right? You're meant to bring something, a casserole of some kind of weird Jell-O salad that looks disgusting, but supposedly tastes great. I don't know. It's green. Not my favorite. So I'm going to bring a game to you guys. I brought one for when I did Wind Waker. I'm bringing another one. This is a game that I'd like to call FMV, or It Can't Be. So the rules are very simple. I'm going to give you a title of a game, and you tell me, is it an FMV game or is it not? And we're going to very strictly state that in this instance, an FMV means that it is live action actors included, not necessarily in the gameplay, but in cutscenes as well. And you tell me FMV or It Can't Be. Just blurt it out. It's perfectly fine. Since we only got 2 people, I might keep score. We'll see.
Got it.
So, for instance, to give you a nice example, if I were to say Night Trap, you would say
FMV.
If I were to say Super Mario Brothers,
It can't be.
Perfect. You guys are pros already. You're ready to go to the big leagues. All right. The first game is titled Dark Side of the Moon.
I want to say FMV.
What about you, Pam?
It can't be.
It is FMV. Ooh. That is a first-person adventure game that is very narrative focused, where you are on the moon trying to save the alien species that exists on the moon.
I thought it was going to be some kind of Pink Floyd game or something.
All right, the next game. Are you ready?
Yes.
Uru, Ages Beyond Mist.
FMV?
I'm going to say It Can't Be to be different.
It Can't Be. It is the only game in the Myst franchise to not have FMV sequences at all. And it is my all-time favorite game. It is a delightful MMORPG in the Myst franchise. It's delightful. Everyone should play that game.
Oh.
All right. Game number 3. Privateer 2, The Darkening.
I'll say it can't be again.
I'll say FMV.
It is FMV. That is the sequel to Wing Commander Privateer, starring Christopher Walken and Clive Owen.
Wow.
Nice.
It
Wow.
is unplayable. It is real bad. It is one of the worst FMV games I've ever played. All right, are you ready?
Mhm.
The Wavy Tube Man Chronicles.
It can't be.
I'm gonna say it can be as well.
You're both wrong. It's FMV.
Oh no.
That is a Wild West shooting gallery game for the Xbox Kinect.
Wow.
I'm learning all kinds of things.
It's a delight.
Yeah,
All right.
add to your list here, Pam. For
I
Yeah.
know.
I dug deep for some of these. Some of them, I'm like, those are kind of basic. Maybe you guys will get those. Some of them I had to dig very deep.
I'll tell you this: I have not heard of any of these titles before. So.
I have played all of these games. Dark Star.
FMV.
It can't be.
It's FMV.
Mm.
It is a first-person adventure game that stars the entire original cast of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh.
It is also not very good. All right, next game. The Uninvited.
I'm gonna say it can't be.
FMV.
It can't be. That was on the Apple II, the NES.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
that's the
I
thing.
know
That
that game. Damn it.
Uninvited. You
I
know
was
the
saying
game.
that sounded like the NES game. I know. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, unless the PC version or something like that has it. I was like, I didn't think it would be. So
It is indeed. It can't be. Next up, Revolution X. A very cheap game. You can get very cheap.
FMV.
I want to. Because I know this game. I know this game because it's in the arcade as well. It's like Gun Games, the Aerosmith game, but I'm gonna say it can be because I don't think they have any cutscenes in it.
FMV.
Okay.
Oh, there are videos where Steven Tyler gives you information on your job. He absolutely, like, you have to put in a little disc into the DVD player, and he absolutely talks to you in FMV.
Don't you
FMV
shoot
it
records
is.
at like people or something like that? Like your gun
Mhm.
shoots records.
Your gun shoots
Yeah.
records. Yes, that is actually not too bad of a game. The console ports are terrible, but the game itself is not too bad in the arcade. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Perry Mason, The Case of the Mandarin Murderer.
Could be FMV.
Could it?
I'm gonna say it can't be because it seems like it's too old. That's like Perry Mason's an old person show, like Matlock.
Oh no, CSI games are all FMV. We got lots of CSI games in this world.
Sure,
I'm
but I'm gonna
sorry,
say,
I don't want to show my hand here.
I'm gonna say because Perry Mason, I think, is an old person show like Matlock, and old people aren't gonna play the video game. So I'm gonna say it's probably just a regular game.
What do you think, Pam?
FMV.
It can't be. This was an Apple II game that was a graphical text adventure that, by the way, Phoenix Wright completely ripped off of, and I will, for the end of time, proclaim it as such. That was a Phoenix. It is 100%. Go to the crime scene. You get your evidence. Courtroom scene. Objection. All of it. Totally ripped off. Legends of Zork.
That sounds like an FMV game to me.
Legends of Zork. It can't be.
It can't be. This was like 2003, 2004, and it was a browser-based MMO set in the Zork universe that was all text. Very random game. Police Quest SWAT.
FMV.
Pam says FMB. Do you agree, Sauce?
I'll say it can't be.
That's an FMV. First-person tactical SWAT simulator. It's okay.
It's okay.
Castle Infinity.
I'll say it can't be.
I'll say it can't be.
FMV.
Oh.
This is one of the wildest games ever to exist. Prepare yourself for the plot of this game. When dinosaurs were destroyed, they were intelligent. They decided to go to another dimension, build a giant castle. They got stuck there for millions of years. And then all of a sudden we found a way to get in there. They're held by demons. It's a 2D child puzzle platforming MMORPG with live action footage. And it teaches you Esperanto.
Oh, that old story.
Yeah, you know, the guy who made it wrote a bunch of choose your own adventure style books in the Super Mario franchise.
Wow.
I didn't even know Mario had those.
Covered in the Literate Pixel Podcast. Here you go. Wild Gunman.
I'm gonna say FMV on that one.
I know I'm mixing this up with Wild something else. Wait. I feel like can't be. I feel like that's a no,
This
can't be.
is the biggest trick question in the world. It is both.
Oh, okay.
The NES version is not, but it was in 1975. Nintendo released an FMV version of it on the arcade. In 1975 was the first iteration of it. The Wild Gunman we know in the NES and in arcades from the 80s is actually a sequel, but it's still called the same. It's a trick question. You both get it right.
I was gonna say, because also I remember that that's an NES game. No.
Yeah, it's both. That's a trick one. Time Traveler.
FMV.
FMV says Pam. What do you say, Sauce?
It sounds like an FMV game.
It is an FMV game. That is the Sega arcade game that used live action. It plays kind of like Space Ace and those sorts of things. Dragon's Lair, but it had a time traveling cowboy, and it used curved mirrors to create a holographic effect.
Nice.
All right, we only got two more.
Nice.
The Cosmology of Kyoto.
I'm gonna say it can't be.
I'm gonna say FMV.
It can't be. This is a edutainment game from the mid 1990s on Windows 95. You can now play it on ScumVM, which I highly recommend people do. It is one of two games that Roger Ebert considers art. Last but not least, the Book of Watermarks.
I feel like we got to end on FMV.
I'll say it. Just to be opposite, I'll say. I think Pam had a good answer there, but I'm gonna say I'll just be opposite. I'll say it can't be for.
It is FMV. This was a Sony-developed first-party game exclusive to the original PlayStation, where you play an assistant to Prospero from Shakespeare's The Tempest, collecting all of the books that have been lost that keep his fantastical, magical island alive.
Wow.
It is a strange delight that is incredibly homoerotic in the best way possible.
What was this called again?
Book of Watermarks. It was Japanese only, but guess what? It's entirely in English. It's worth playing. It's a strange game, but it is very delightful. That is the game. Let me tally up the scores. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh, 7. Ooh, okay. And 1. The winner, 9-6, is our host with the most. Sauce, congratulations, 9-6.
Yay, congratulations.
The man with the least FMV experience won by sheer luck alone.
I went with. Does it sound like an FMV game? Does it sound like one?
And that is the game FMV, or It Can't Be. Thank you very much for playing.
That was fun. Thank you. I honestly, I had heard of maybe 4 of those games, so I just guessed poorly most of the
They are
time.
the weirdest games too.
Yeah.
Almost none of them are good, but they're all very interesting.
I heard of about 2 of them. what, 2?
Yeah.
So
You got Revolution X, but you didn't
three,
guess it though. You didn't know, but I was like, it is the Aerosmith game. Come on, you got this.
Well, it's been a minute. And I don't own did it get released on the Saturn? Or...
Yeah, it was Saturn, and it was atrocious. The Saturn port is very bad. I own it. It is not good. Whew.
Just community impressions. I want to give a shout out to Jerry Brace from Embraceware. He mentioned on Discord that this was one of his favorite games, and he was happy to have it featured as part of the Cartridge Club. So besides Rob, who's Derek's friend, turns out there's a love for FMV games here. Right?
There is. It's small, but it's there.
It's intense.
There's
few of us, but we're really passionate.
I'm sorry. I'm like vibrating right now. I'm like, yes, FMVs are cool.
I think the thing it hurts the most probably is not everyone has a Sega CD, right? That's probably what it comes down to. I mean, it was like $200 add-in, right? When the Sega Genesis was there, followed by another $200 add-in with the 32X. So
no one's buying that 32X. No.
So yeah, so it's one of those. I think not everyone generally has it. Plus, older CD software with lenses going out on it. Like I have to occasionally keep cleaning my lens on mine to keep it working. So,
and if you put the Genesis power adapter on it, it breaks.
So
yeah, I don't even have my Sega CD anymore. So I sold my XI and all my games except for 3, one of which is Sewer Shark.
Hey,
Pam, why don't you give us your final overall thoughts on playing Sewer Shark?
I think Sewer Shark is a really fun game. I agree that, it's not a 10 out of 10, but, it's a solid 7 out of 10. And it's a fun rail shooter. It makes use of the FMV really well. It's got that cheesiness, but you want that in your FMV, especially from the 80s. And yeah, if you are a fan of rail shooters, then I think it's definitely worth a shot. And it's one of the best offerings from Digital Pictures for sure. So yeah, definitely recommend it if you have the system on which to play it. I really hope it gets a remake. I was sure that on a trailer for another game, they put in a Sewer Shark little screen, the people who are doing the remakes, and that it was coming, but I haven't heard any news since. But yeah, definitely worth a play.
Bogus, what are your final thoughts on Sewer Shark?
Pam summed it up wonderfully. I mean, it's worth a shot. I do wish they did a remake for it. Why they did Corpse Killer before this, I don't know, but it's good. It's an enjoyable game. Just read the manual before you play. That's it.
I'll copy Pam here and say I even thought before even playing this and hearing when Derek told me that this was the game that was selected, I thought this game got re-released on Switch and PlayStation and Xbox, just like Night Trap and Corpse Killer, and I thought that was just part of the list, and I was shocked that actually wasn't. Not that it's because it's a great game. It's just I've known about Sewer Shark because it's like you always see it at least at retro stores because it's cheap and it's kind of like Mario Brothers where it was just always there. And like I said, because it's cheap, it's still worth a play if you can play. It is deserving of some kind of remake for just a little bit added life features or maybe. I mean, I think aside from having what's it called, hold down B to select your path, I think just having maybe the analog as the shoot option, maybe the D-pad be your directional as opposed to having to hold down would go miles for this game. But other than that, it's a fun game. It's worth playing through. It's worth the cutscenes and the quotable lines, and yeah, it's a fun time. It's cheap. If you can play it some other way, through emulation, I'd recommend it. It's worth a playthrough. I'd like to reiterate, June's game of the month will be Fallout 3. If you're playing along or just want to discuss the game with us, make sure to let us know by using the hashtag Cartridge Club on whatever social media platform you frequent. For those of you who want to get a head start in July's game of the month, we'll be playing Donkey Kong Country 2. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, please reach out to us. We're always looking forward to having new community members on to talk about the games they love. To those of you interested in supporting the club beyond a review on the podcast app of your choice, I'd like to mention that the club is entirely funded by pledges made from members of our community. We are extremely grateful to those supporters, and if you're interested in becoming one of them, please look at how you can do so at patreon.com/Cartridge Club. But with that being said, that's the show, everyone. I'd like to thank my guests for being here and helping along. So, Pam, where can we find you online?
You can find me on YouTube. My channel is called Cannot Be Tamed, and that is also the name of my Twitch channel where I stream when my internet is working.
Hooray. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Bogus Meat Factory, where can we find you online?
So you can find me on Twitter at Bogus Meat Factor because of character limits. Hooray! Also, I stream 4 days a week on twitch.tv/Bogus Meat Factory. We play a lot of everything, new, old, you name it. And I also have another podcast where we read and review books based off of video game franchises. So we've done things like the Worlds of Power series, like their novelization of Mega Man 2 and Bases Loaded 2, because, baseball games should have novelizations. And which is called the Literate Pixel Podcast. It's totally worth it. We also talk about Infocom text adventure games. My good friend and I, we've been going through the entire catalog of them chronologically and chronicling our journeys, which has been very enjoyable. So, yep, that's where you can find me. Yay!
Yay. As for myself, you can find me on Twitter with the handle ItsRocketSauce. I'm also on the Cartridge Club Discord, and I do have an Instagram handle with the same name, but right now it's just mostly pictures of my dog Max, because I'm proud.
That's the best. That's the best right there.
So it's basically Max's Adventures right now, but I feel like seeing a picture of a Jack Russell mix. Check out ItsRocketSauce on Instagram. But with that being said, that's the show, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and CC Unite.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Digital Pictures. Number nine.
Journeys, which has been very enjoyable. So, yep, that's where you can find me. Yay!
Yay. As for myself, you can find me on Twitter with the handle ItsRocketSauce. I'm also on the Cartridge Club Discord, and I do have an Instagram handle with the same name, but right now it's just mostly pictures of my dog Max, because I'm proud.
That's the best. That's the best right there.
So it's basically Max's Adventures right now, but I feel like seeing a picture of a Jack Russell mix. Check out ItsRocketSauce on Instagram. But with that being said, that's the show, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and CC Unite.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Digital Pictures. Number nine.